Buying an old car is very much like investing your money on a high return, high risk mutual fund. While the returns could be on the higher side, the risks involved are also quite high, especially if you do not know the market. I am Sri Chakradhar and welcome to my channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? In my previous video, which was in Hindi, I had discussed about the various reasons why I had to sell my Honda Brio and to whom did I sell it. You can see all these details in my previous video. You can go ahead and check that video by clicking on the pop-up, which is just popping up right here. Without any further ado, let me introduce you to my newly acquired old car, the Maruti Ertiga. This Maruti Ertiga is one of the shorter 7-seaters you can find in the market today if you exclude the Renault Tri-Version. Well, by the way, this is an MPV. So should you go ahead and buy an MPV in today's SUV crazy market? Let's just find that out. Well, talking of the dashboard, you do find two AC vents here at the center, one at the driver's side. But the AC vent which I find very interesting is the AC vent there for the co-passenger. What it basically does is this. Voila! This is where you can store your Coca-Cola or Aqua, as Ronaldo says, and it gets chilled as you travel. This, by the way, was the answer for the chilled glow boxes that we have today back in 2012. This was an high-end vehicle model then. You have almost all the safety features that we find in today's cars. You have ABS, which was a luxury back then. You have electronic brake distribution, or EBD as it is known, and you have two airbags. I know some of the models today boast of 6 or even 7 curtain airbags, but what do you expect from a 9-year-old car? You are having the basic safety features that are required. You also find a rather old but nevertheless interesting music system here, which obviously doesn't have any touch function, but there is a scope for inserting a CD right here. Who would have thought in 2012 that CDs would make no sense one decade down the lane? People often complain about the build quality of the Maruti vehicles, or the lack of build quality of Maruti vehicles, especially when you close the doors. You don't get the kind of confidence that you expect from a German-made car, let's say a Volkswagen or a Skoda. Just hear it once again. Now, what I personally feel is the sturdiness of these doors and other things certainly do matter, but when you are traveling at a high speed on the highways, I don't think how much difference do they make in overall chances of survival. The thump that the doors make in a Volkswagen or a Skoda, they claim they give you a sense of safety, which you cannot expect in a Maruti, but then I have found a way out. What you can do is, the doors here are pretty huge, and also the space for bottles is pretty huge. So what I normally do is, I fill up the bottles, the 1 liter, 2 liter ones, and then I insert them here. The weight of the door automatically increases, and then safe as can be. Well, for one thing, the doors open almost to 90 degrees. Therefore, it gives you very good access when you want to enter into the second row. I am here in the second row of Ertiga, and to begin with, the knee room is quite substantial. Let's not even talk of the headroom, it's humongous. You also have your own dedicated armrest. Ideally, this is where you would want to spend time on those long highway journeys. Especially these seats are rather comfortable. You have very good under thigh support. These seats can be moved front and back depending on the amount of room you want to liberate yourself. And also the most important point, which I was pleasantly surprised with, is the amount of recline these seats offer. Let me just show it to you. With this much of recline and your own AC vents here, which basically are blowers, this is a rather good place to be, no matter how long the journey takes. Now let me introduce you to the major USP of the Maruti Ertiga. which is the third row. In order to enter the third row, what you need to do here is basically pull this row ahead and then do this. This gives you some space so that you can enter. Entering the third row will make you realize how old you are getting or how heavy you are getting, because it's not one of those easier things to do. Now let me just flip this seat so that you have an idea about the amount of knee room in offer in the third row. In this case, the seat is all the way behind, and as you can see, the knee room is almost non-existent. But here, when I put it ahead a little further, maybe in the middle adjustment, I do find a lot of space. The only saving grace here is the amount of headroom available and the fact that the headrests are adjustable for height. These seats cannot be reclined, but one thing is you sit very close to windshield at the back. You do find a light here which you can read if you do not find the journey pleasing. With all rows up, the boot space is a meager 180 liters, or rather non-existent. But once the seats are folded, you do get a massive boot space, though it's not completely flat, but it's manageable. So in order to wrap up this video, what I would say is the first generation of Ertiga, which was launched in 2012 and which continued until 2017-18, is more like a 5+2 rather than a 7-seater. It's ideal for 5 passengers with extra luggage room, extra boot space, which you get after flipping these seats ahead. If you have a family of say 5 individuals and you want to use your car predominantly to travel those large distances, then this is an ideal car. So if you are looking for a car which gives you the added advantage of 7 seats occasionally, but a very large boot, then you definitely should consider the first generation Ertigas. Because the thing to note here is, this first generation of Ertigas will be available for a much competitive prices compared to the newer generation ones. In my next video, I'm going to share about the interiors of the car and the changes that I have made to the interiors so as to make the longer journeys that much more comfortable. So please do stick around and meet you in the next video.